Actually, some most disturbing things I see modern story movement
Everything
Dubai.
about Dubai screams excess, from the heights of the tallest skyscraper in the world to the depths of the deepest underwater pool. But most of the glittering and effective lures that the UAE's tourism board has are their influences.
Burj Khalifa.
Tens of thousands of bikini models and Andrew Tate wannabes descend on the city every year to show off the sights and lounge around in air-conditioned villas. But underneath Dubai's surface of glitz and glamour lies an underbelly of depravity. In fact, some of the content in this video is highly disturbing, so turn back now if you don't want to know the true reality
Porta party
of
incident.
being an influencer in Dubai. Now, Dubai is known around the world for its cleanliness, both their public places as well as their people. If you take a walk around the some big streets, you'll see it's clear of litter and no crime to be seen, enforced by the highly strict religious laws and the lengthy prison sentences for criminals. Every other week, there's headlines about some Westerner getting arrested for having drugs in their system, or even having CBD in their car, showing affection in public or criticizing the government.
It's the Middle Eastern, so they're very strict on
It's
that.
not an atmosphere you'd expect to match up with
Especially in Dubai.
bikinis, but the UAE makes an exception for them. It's a small glimpse of the hypocrisy that underlines this whole city. While the 90% of the UAE's population are migrant workers, and the other native citizens lower down the ladder who have to obey these laws or else, as always, there's a whole other world for the wealthy and powerful. These are the people who, in their own narrow view of the world,
They can do whatever they want.
already got anything and everything they want. Whatever they desire can be met with a click of a finger. Whatever food they want, whatever mansion they want to live in, and whatever they want to do. All of their wishes can be arranged for just a tiny fraction of their almost unlimited oil wealth. The people and world around them have been quantified and given a price. So where can they go from here? What other experiences are there left to explore? Well, it's no wonder they've been indulging in their darkest and most deranged fantasies yet. You can get an idea of where we're going from these messages sent to influencers who appeared in Love Island, a reality TV show in the UK. Tyne Lexi, a model from the show, woke up one day to see a weird DM
It depends microphone.
from a man from Dubai. He offered her £20,000 for dinner and some drinks. You can understand what the implications were there. She was only 19 at the time of the message. A couple years later, after she'd been on Love Island, an agency which said they represented a client in Dubai offered her £50,000 for 5 nights in the city. Included in the offer was a non-disclosure agreement, a common practice in this new wave of propositioning in Tyne Lexi then stated that she refused both of the offers. Another Love Island star, Rosie Williams, was offered £100,000 per year for being the companion of a man from Dubai. Along with the cash came the promise that he would take her shopping whenever she wanted and foot the bill for her handbags and clothing. It happens all the time. The same article describing these cases talks about the countless anonymous tips and stories of similar things happening to other
Actually, you should probably take the money.
social media models. It just doesn't get talked about. Either the women refuse and don't mention it, or they accept and they're too embarrassed or under agreement of silence. You see, most of the influencers that come to Dubai go for the same reason they do anything else: brand deals. Brand deals are the currency which fuels the whole industry. Influencers are only as valuable as the amount of people they can convince to buy your product. So when companies with massively overinflated marketing budgets are looking to appeal to a younger audience, they're an easy solution. It's this path that the makeup brand Tarte went for, shipping 50 influencers and their plus ones to an all-expense paid trip to Dubai. Footage from the event showed that each influencer was given their own luxury apartment and business class flights to and from the home country. The flights alone cost tens of thousands of dollars each. Add in shopping sprees and luxury restaurants, and you can get a picture that there was more to this than simple marketing. It didn't help that in their promotions, lots of the influencers didn't even know the name of the brand they were shilling. Apart from being completely out of touch with real life, there was
it's easy for you to say we have a lot of wealth accumulated throughout the years. I think any person would like a free trip to Dubai and all.
definitely something else going on. Tarte's CEO stated that they don't do traditional marketing, and instead they spend their budget on building relationships and building up communities. In this case, they were probably building up a relationship with the UAE's Tourism Council and their limitless funds. For the biggest influencers, they don't have to worry about anything. Their agents and their brands will sort it all out for them. But for the rest of the Instagram models who aren't at the top, it's a completely different story. For them, it will often begin with a direct message from a rich businessman who will offer them massive sums of cash for vague favors and a trip to Dubai. Other times it's been a friend of theirs in the industry.
Pay
Telling
by the
about
way.
rich opportunities, the ways that their own trip to Dubai boosted their career, and how nothing explicitly will be expected of them once they get there. Whatever they can say to convince them to go for
That's just actually mess up.
modeling work or some other cover. For the greedy and the desperate that take the offer, they're transported to a different world. And here is where it gets very graphic. You see, this sort of thing isn't just happening in Dubai. It's happening all over America, where people find themselves the victims of by powerful predatory people at the head of organizations all across the states. And if you've ever experienced hardship at the hands of those running these powerful companies and organizations, pursuing legal action might be your best option to achieve justice. But the problem for most people, like many of those examples I discussed in this video, is that you never feel like you can achieve justice because taking legal action can be so financially draining. But this is where the legal firm Morgan & Morgan steps in to alleviate that burden. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm that take action to protect your rights, and Morgan & Morgan will fight tirelessly to get the compensation that you deserve. So make sure you submit a claim today at £529 on your phone, and submit your claim in as little as 8 clicks or less. That's forthepeople.com/moon to submit your case today, thanks to Morgan & Morgan. And it's good to note that none of these stories can be confirmed with very hard evidence, besides a few disgusting videos, but the ludicrous amounts of different sources, the explicit details and the embarrassing and secretive nature of the industry makes it incredibly likely they're true. The most circulated story was told by one Twitter user in a threaded tweet, recounting a conversation they had with one of these models who had been duped and coerced into it. The woman involved described meeting a rich and handsome Emirati businessman on a private flight, who convinced her to come to Dubai with him. Once they were there, they spent time on dates, saw the sights, and did other touristy stuff. But a few days into the trip, he tells her to dress up fancy and drives her to a villa on the outskirts of town, miles from any other houses. Inside are a collection of older, wealthy men, with more women her age. Everything seemed kind of normal, if a little sketchy on the first day there. But at 2 AM that night, she was awoken by an attendant.
Actually get up by the power, right?
To get her for games.
Yeah, it's all about the power, I guess.
When she came downstairs, she was greeted by a large room full of toys and buckets. The other women were there. Some of them looked nervous, whilst the men were calmly waiting. The women were made to strip. Then one of the men pulled down their pants and into the bucket. For the next 2 days, they all engaged, often involving the use or consumption of what is in the buckets. Obviously, lots of these women wanted to leave immediately, but they had been promised $50,000 if they lasted the 2 days. On top of that, if they left, they would be without their personal belongings in the middle of nowhere in a very foreign country, so nearly all of them chose to stay. It's stories like these that give a glimpse into the true reality of being an influencer or a model in Dubai. It's in stark contrast to the clean, idyllic pictures you see on their feeds. Instagram and social media in general is a showcase of the results, not what they had to do to get there. The cars and the clothes and the holidays might look incredible, but you'll never know the lengths some people have gone to get there. Would a Chanel bag really be worth going through that? But in some cases, you can't blame the people for doing this. If they've been duped or threatened into it, or if their situation is desperate enough to where they have no choice, it's an awful decision for them to make. But for others, it's motivated by greed alone. However, the real blame here lies with the rich men instigating it, creating the networks and taking advantage of people. It's relatively unsurprising though when you consider how Dubai treats the migrant population in other cases.
And they're like a law for trafficking.
Either they're working them like slaves, withholding their meager wages for months or years at a time, or giving them under the bare minimum of living conditions. It's predictable that they'd be using these people for other things. That's the side of the scandal we don't see, and it's likely to be far worse than what does come out. Influencers and Instagram models, if they're going to talk about it, at least have a platform to get the word out. Migrant workers from developing countries don't really have that same following or opportunity to make their situation known, and Dubai's elites are nearly certain to have taken full advantage of that. If what we do hear about is so horrific, you can only dread to imagine what happens that we don't know. There are some people that might say it doesn't matter what happens between consenting adults behind closed doors. Of course, that totally forgets how hypocritical it is for Dubai's elites and how disgusting it is. And unfortunately, it isn't always just adults involved, as the next story shows. One video of a woman speaking out about a contract she had signed was incredibly revealing. In the video, she verbally consents to flying out to Dubai, getting an STD check, then to perform sexual acts with the client, a rich member of Dubai's ruling class called Sultan Ali. She mentions specific foot stuff, but the worst part was that she also mentions doing the same things with the client's brother, only 13 years old according to the model. In return, she did $25,000 before she left and a further $25,000 after the deed was done.
I'm willing to come to Dubai to Sultan Ali. In Dubai I will have a STD check and Mr. Ali too. After that we are having unprotected, and I will let Mr. Ali lick the humus of my feet. I will also
lick the one?
his virgin brother, who is 13 years old.
Only a few of these kinds of videos have ever been leaked, but it's likely to become common practice. There could be tens of thousands more out there, and it's doubtful that these men would even need the video or the contract for legal reasons. Dubai's legal system is so biased against migrants and foreigners compared to the ruling classes that nothing would ever happen even if they did get caught somehow. Corruption runs deep, and being connected and a part of the powerful means you're not going to be punished by them. Instead, it's probably meant as a power play and a verification. It matches up with the former flight attendant mentioned in a story on the scandal. In her post on TikTok, she went into all the gore details about her conversations with Instagram models and influencers on their way to Dubai. One woman she spoke to in first class had taken her notice because she was eating tons of oatmeal and yogurt, while she kept talking about getting more fiber in her diet. When the flight attendant took the bait and asked why, she was happy to tell her. And now this far in, you can guess what she told the flight attendant. All the fiber was for indecent acts that she was going to perform on a rich client from Dubai. After it was done, she would be paid £20,000.
All this fiber on board, you know, you're getting a good little meal in, and then you're like somebody's mouth who's paying you $20,000 to do it.
But what's so
that's kind of busy money, huh?
surprising about the video though is how casual the flight attendant is telling her the story. She insinuated
It's still mess up, but it's better than eating the remains.
that it happens all the time, and that she's had similar, if less extreme, experiences. The practice clearly runs deep, and it's likely that it's been going on for a few years now, considering the amount of stories and how accepted it is. The line between sex workers and social media models is blurred significantly to the point that Instagram is like a public catalogue for rich Emiratis to browse. One British Instagram model with 85,000 followers, who also had a reputation as a working girl, was a rare example of Dubai's authorities cracking down on the trade. She fled Dubai in 2021 after Dubai's police officers raided her apartment. They had found her profiles in Seeking Arrangement, an infamous website designed to connect young women and rich older men. At the apartment, they found over $54,000 worth of local currency in cash, probably earnings from her work there. The influencer and her boyfriend eventually ended up back in London. Although the UK and Dubai have a mutual extradition treaty, meaning they could be arrested at any time, but Dubai still hasn't made the call. However, stories like these are just so far and few between. Dubai's police probably decided to stop turning a blind eye, not because of some change in overall policy, but because the parties in the continued well into the COVID pandemic. Even as the world was either shuttered in their homes or working to keep society running, the grind never ended for influencers. There's tons of examples of influencers going to Dubai over lockdown, claiming it was essential for their mental health or any other ridiculous excuse. It's a move that parallels other examples of influencers' self-centeredness and their complete lack of regard for morality. Those Instagram models that willingly promote Dubai and go there to enrich themselves are all working to propagate a fantasy. It should be obvious by now that Dubai isn't the paradise you see on social media. It's a cold, materialistic, vapid, plastic and fake city that treats people as it's another resource to use and discard to serve their ruling elites. So when you next see somebody basking in the sun on the balcony of the Dubai villa, don't forget closed doors to get there.
You can work hard and get there to Dubai, so you can get to another route by doing illegal steps. So I think the first one is better, so I jump video for now. Just video.